Welcome to this week's episode on Out of This World Thinking Fourth Dimensionally. It is another teaching series, but in this series, I will be expanding on the exercises that come about for the practices. And also, I want to spend a little bit of time helping you understand why thinking fourth dimensionally is actually so fundamental in terms of manifestation and the use of your imagination. When I study, when I read, when I explore different teachings and concepts, it's really so that I can actually make sense in terms of how the pieces are going to be put together and how they work. Now, thinking fourth dimensionally, Neville does go into some technical aspects of understanding how things work in 3D. And as such, when you can apply what that thinking is in terms of the 3D understanding of dimensions, we're going to talk a little bit about this, you can understand why and how you are a fourth dimensional being. Now, the concept may be a little bit foreign or out there if you haven't heard it before, but I'm going to guess and hazard that you've heard of this in some way, shape, or form. When Neville started talking and teaching about these concepts, it was very foreign. This was in the 1950s. In fact, it would have been early 1940s, and therefore it has, in some way, shape, and form, over these past 50 years, it has evolved. It has taken us into a higher level of consciousness because these are concepts that, not even concepts, but these are teachings that have filtered into mass consciousness. Now, I'm going to encourage you to just stick with it. If you haven't read the text and this is new for you, I do suggest you go and read the text. And when I read Thinking Fourth Dimensionally at first, and this was it was about 2 years ago when I first started reading the text, it did feel at times, I'm not getting this. And if you feel that way, believe me, it is not uncommon. It really is a case of this consciousness and this understanding penetrating through the levels of programming that have been accumulated over your lifetime. Not just programming from what you will have picked up from your environment or other people, but even programming where your perception is actually holding on to things as belief, things as you believe the world works as well. Now, one of the things that I've actually observed is, even with physics, the classical physics that we understand and quantum physics are different ends, different spectrums of science, and they do not match. It's not that you have to go and understand quantum physics, but yet when you start to realize our world is made up of so many different aspects and laws and processes and paradigms and dimensions of thinking and understanding and how it all fits together, it's a wonderful puzzle that starts to emerge as you decide, no matter what, I seek to rather explore, I seek to be open and create something that might be greater expansion for myself. So I do encourage you that when you watch this video, watch it a couple of times, watch it maybe in chunks. You may find at times that you're finding yourself drifting off. You're finding that it's too much. You may feel foggy. Believe me, that happens. It'll happen when you pick up a book. And it is really that the energy of the words are penetrating through consciousness. They're penetrating through levels of programming to get to your consciousness. Allow that to happen. It is like putting you take a drop of ink and you put it into a glass of water. Initially, that ink is going to be very dispersed because there's more water than there will be just that one drop of color. Now, take another drop and add that to the glass. This blue hue or this slight tinge will start to deepen, and that is because now there's a higher concentration that has been introduced into that body of water. And so this is what is happening with consciousness. This is what is happening with your understanding, that each time you may read or hear or listen, entertain a new idea, it is actually filtering through. And think of it as letting go of the old concepts and thinking for the new to start to emerge. And so in this week, we're going to talk about thinking fourth dimensionally and what the fourth dimension actually means, and how you can start to understand that we are able to alter our future. So let's get into it. And so the book is called Out of This World, 4 chapters, and we're still on the first chapter, which is thinking fourth dimensionally. Something that Neville says right up front in terms of the chapter, he says many persons, myself included, have observed events before they occurred. That is, before these events showed up in the world of 3 dimensions. So our physical world, I will refer to as 3D or third dimension, because it is the physical reality of where length, breadth, and width show up in terms of the what we observe in our reality. And Neville says, since man can observe an event before it occurs in the 3 dimensions of space, life on Earth must proceed according to plan. So what he's talking about is, before that event shows up in 3D and compels life on Earth to move according to that plan must exist somewhere else in another dimension and be slowly moving in through to our space. Think of that drop of ink into a glass of water. It slowly penetrates, it slowly starts to immerse and bond with the rest of the water. So what Neville is talking about is, we can observe. How often will it be that you will have thought of something and then it shows up in your physical reality? And so we can have dreams, we can have feelings about something that we are tapping into, and that's where we start to connect into our imagination, and we bring about this impact, because everything that we see in our imagination, from the power of our creation energy, we are effecting in the world. And I asked this question last week as well. Can man alter his future? And in the previous episode, we spoke about how it is that man alters his future by merely changing his attitude. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about fulfillment of your desire. It is a little exercise, and this exercise we are focusing on desired promotion. So you will find that there is there's always repetition in Neville's work, and what I found is, often I would think, oh, I've heard this before. Having heard it before, there were things that I did not understand, or I wasn't applying in the way that I should have, or in the way that would be more effective for for the use of my imagination, for practicing the techniques and the processes. And so I do urge you to have an open mind, listen with the ears of a beginner, so that you may see and hear things that you haven't heard before. So it always starts with, what do you desire in anything that you are wanting to manifest in any way, shape, or form, any changes you wish to bring about, or transformation in terms of your life. What do you desire? You must know what you want. And from there, you're going to look at putting together a scene which will imply that your desire has happened. And when you have that, you're going to go into the practice. Now, the practice is a technique until you have mastered your imagination. You have mastered how you program your subconscious. Everything that is imprinted into the subconscious, it filters into, connects into the quantum, the universe, the cosmic field, and that's the fourth dimension. And that is time. I'm already alluding to what we're going to be chatting about. And when we can connect within and feel strongly about the desire that we have, we can then bring those things that are invisible, not yet in our 3D world, those things that are unseen, we bring them into the world so that they may become seen. Now, something that Neville talks about in the lecture, and he says people have a habit of slighting the importance of simple things. Slighting means to overlook, to discount, to not pay attention. The simple formula that he has given, that he has talked about for changing the future, was discovered after years of searching and experimenting. And this is not just him. These are other luminaries and other great minds. They have endeavored to ask and look for, what is it and how is it that I create my life? And Neville says this again, the first step in changing your future is desire. So define your objective, know definitely what you want. And when you know what you want, bring a scene that, or an event that you construct that says you will encounter this scene because your desire is fulfilled. The event must imply this fulfillment of your desire, something that you will take an action which comes from you. When you go into the practice, you must immobilize the physical body. This is very important. I've mentioned this in other videos, so if you want to look at some of my practice videos where we talk about going into the relaxed state, when you drop into this relaxed state, you now get out of the thinking mind and you move into the feeling of what the desire would be and what it would be for you when you have achieved it. Remember, you can either go from lack, I don't have, or you can move from, in imagination, you move from what you don't have, what is unseen, to the seen. And when we can do that, that is when we are making that inner psychological motion. We are moving our state from I don't have to it is now fulfilled. And that as well is prayer. So look up my video on prayer. And prayer is the psychological inner motion in terms of having that which you most desire and want to manifest. So we drop into this drowsy state and you simply close your eyes and go within. But you must withdraw your attention from the outside world, outside of you where it shows, the 3D world shows you do not have that desire, and you move within into the fourth dimension. And the more you can get into this drowsy state, the more you connect to the dimensionally larger world. When you focus solely on what you want to experience in imagination, excluding all others out, you start to create already in the higher dimension. The higher dimension being the dimensionally larger world, the quantum, the field, whatever you may want to call it. So you are immobilized. You bring about this state akin to sleep. You can lie on a bed. You can relax in a chair. You can do this in 30 seconds during your day. Take a little bit longer when you do this at night. With your attention focused on that which you intend to experience, that which you intend to have in your life, not from a place of lack, but from a place of it is done. Because creation is finished. I will speak about this in a future video as to what this means. In fact, I have spoken about it in my previous video in terms of how timelines work. You must always participate in your imaginary action. Do not stand back and spectate. You must participate. You must feel that you are the one performing the actions in the scene. Now, how can we do this? Here's a simple example. We're taking the example of a desired promotion. The one thing that implies that your desire, your promotion is already done, it is yours, is when you are congratulated, because that implies success. Now, again, I'm just going to say, do not visualize yourself at a distant point in space or a distant point of time. This is very important. Do not believe that it is in the future. You've got to make the future there, here, and then what will have happened then, you're bringing it into the now. Remember, the future exists in the dimensionally larger world, and I'll talk about how and why that is, so that you have a better understanding that it's not just something I have said or I've explained, or that you've picked it up from Neville's teachings, etc. This is so you can understand that there has been a lot of contemplation, reflection from the great minds throughout history in terms of actually understanding ourselves as these dimensionally larger beings. So when you go into the scene for the desired promotion, congratulations is going to imply you have the job. So what you will do is become the person, you will still, so you become quiet. The scene will be constructing a scene where you are being congratulated, and you will experience this in your imagination. You imagine that a friend is standing before you. Put your imaginary hand into his and feel his hand to be solid and real. Now, in this picture, you will see that when you shake someone's hand, you're going to see them in front of you, and you will see their hand reaching out to shake your hand. And that's what you simply have to do. That is participating in the scene. Hear your friend say congratulations in your imaginary conversation with him. And you will then loop the scene, which means repeat it a couple of times until hearing congratulations, feeling his hand feels so real for you. It must feel solid and real. Imagine how the handshake would feel. Imagine just the subtle pressure or a firm handshake, whichever it is that you are able to bring into your scene and feeling it real. And so see yourself being congratulated, knowing that you have this desired promotion. And so what is this all about in terms of the dimensionally larger world? Here's what Neville talks about. He says, man does not know exactly what is meant by the dimensionally larger world. And therefore, because he doesn't know it, would deny the existence of a dimensionally larger self. And yet Neville had these experiences. He was able to leave us the processes and the way in which to connect with the dimensionally larger self. And so what we're going to explore is understanding this concept of the dimensionally larger world and how physics shows us the 3D example and being able to translate that into how we are dimensionally larger beings. So there are 3 dimensions: length, width, and height that we know of. Now, man would think that if there were a 4th dimension, it should be obvious. Now, at this point, if you want to really, and you're curious about learning more around the science of this, you can look up J.W. Dunn's book called An Experiment with Time, where he starts to talk about this. He theorized what it would be like in terms of looking at a serial universe. And this is what Neville seems to be talking about here in terms of viewing things from a serial universe. What J.W. Dunn's theory resolves is the issue of looking at a higher dimension of time, and that's in our consciousness. So let's say the 3D world is time 1. The higher dimension of time is time 2. And it is in terms of our consciousness, which travels from time 1 to time 2 when we drop into imagination. The physical brain itself inhabits time 1. And so the level of consciousness will inhabit time 2. It's at that level of consciousness that the observer now starts to experience the dimensionally larger world. So let's take this another step forward. A dimension is not a line. It is not a physical thing. In our 3D world, when we measure something solidly, when we measure something that is solid, we simply measure length, width, and height. But in the dimensionally larger world, we do not measure length, width, or height. It is anything but length, width, and height. So the question is then, what is it? How do we measure an object in the dimensionally larger world? And so we come to this. We come to look at time as a medium for change. So time measures our lives without using 3 dimensions of length, width, or height. In terms of time, we see there is no such thing as an instantaneous object. There's an appearance and a disappearance. So something will appear in our reality and then it disappears, and that measurement is time. So in terms of time, something will endure for a length of time. So we can measure the lifespan. We would not measure the length, width, or height. And so time is definitely a fourth way of measuring an object. So all changes take time, and in terms of time, there's this new, in terms of the fourth dimension as well, there's this quality now of changeability. It's not limited to length, width, and height. So again, by now I hope that you're starting to understand and grasp that also what we see in our physical reality is, like it is said, as above so below, as within so without, as in the heavens so on earth. So as we see the structure of solids in our environment, we can start to infer certain things and look at how consciousness works. So let's bisect a solid. And what we're going to look at here is, here's a solid, it's a cube. If we were to bisect it, what we would get then is a surface. Now, taking that a little bit further, we take that surface and I slice up a sliver of that surface. I end up with a line. Now let's take it another step further. I slice up that line, the tip of the line, and I end up with a dot. And so what we see is this model that science has provided to us. We see in one dimension, we have a dot. In 2 dimensions, we have a line. So we have length, width, and height coming together, and that starts to create the solids in our physical reality. So this is how 3D works. Now stay with me just a little bit longer. So when I take that analogy and I say, okay, so a dot is a subsection of a line, because that dot, many dots make up this line. We just do not see it defined in that way. We're always observing things as a whole. Now, if I had to take many lines and I bring them together, I will get a surface. I bring that 2D surface, many of them together, add them up, they solidify, it becomes a solid. So now you start to see that things that break down from the larger perspective, that the larger perspective, the whole solid that we think we are seeing, is really many of these sub parts. Does sound a little bit like physics, but I'm going to expand on this. So remember, all this means is the dot is the subsection, cross-section of a line, the line, cross-section of a surface. The surface is a cross-section of the cube. So if we take this logical conclusion and look at what is happening in terms of cross-section of fourth dimension, which really means then I am the dot that you see here in physical reality. I am a subsection of many of the little dots that make up my other realities, other timelines, other dimensions. Bring all of that together, it starts to become a more expanded version of me and consciousness, and at the highest level, it is this fourth dimensional aspect of self. So when I meet someone, what I'm meeting is a cross-section of the four-dimensional self. The unseen here is only showing up as one part in the scene. Now, imagine the level to which you are able to create. Your fourth dimensional self is available to bring everything into your reality. You just need to practice and master this level of consciousness, of your imagination, of your creative power, because the part that you think is a mere dot is a part of the bigger four-dimensional self. To see the four-dimensional self, what now happens is I must see every cross-section or moment of my life from birth to death, and I must see that in everyone. I see all of it coexisting, the many lives, the many experiences, everything. When I start to see from that fourth dimensional self, I become aware that I am not just that single dot, I am everything. So my focus needs to take in the entire array, the entire spectrum of all of the impressions I have experienced on Earth, plus any I might encounter. So here we now start to see Neville's talking about not just the past, but the future as well. Because that future self is already in existence. We are but unfolding through the choices that we make in terms of which timeline will I choose to inhabit here, by the fact that I focus on one thing and I bring that into my reality. So when I look at someone, I should see them not in the order of what they experience and what experiences they've had, but I should see them as a whole. I see them as the dimensionally larger self. I see them at their higher level. Now, because change is the characteristic of fourth dimension, time has this quality of changeability, which means we can change what we've experienced. We can go into the past and change it, and Neville talks about revision. I have a masterclass available on revision, and I will do revision in a future series. I just want you to understand we're building the foundational thinking here. We are building the foundation for how you become this potent creator of your reality. In reality creation, it is very important that you start to understand you are a four-dimensional being. And four-dimension is not 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of hierarchy. Four-dimensional is time. We are now working with time on the cosmic, on the quantum, on the larger perspective. So if we have this clear in our minds now, what does it mean in terms of our third dimensional world? In terms of 3D, it means we can move along the length of time, but we can see the future and alter it, because we have that access and capacity from the perspective of our imagination, our creation power, from our subconscious, and how we can program our subconscious. By focusing your attention, you call things that are unseen, those desires that you are compelled to have, that you have a driving force, a feeling for, that you feel so strongly about, when you bring those desires into being, when you focus on them, you feel it real, you experience it already in the dimensionally larger world, at the higher level of yourself. When that self sees and feels and truly accepts it as done, leans into faith and assumes that it is done, because assumptions, even though false, harden into fact. That's our next lecture, by the way. When we assume without evidence that of our belief, whether it is true or not, when we assume our belief to be true for us, that is what you call into being in your life. And why we can say this is the world, the 3D world that you are looking at, is a shadow, because a shadow gets projected when, so if you know, when you are out in the sun is the light that is being blocked out by your body projects the shadow. We believe the world is solidly real, and actually it isn't. It is a projection. It is your filters, it is your thinking, your opinions, your feelings that you have made so strongly felt within that it must come into being. When you remain concentrated in that state, when you are in that state akin to sleep, and you remain fully focused, without effort, by the way, because you feel it real, your present environment in the imagination, in the dimensionally larger world, moves away, and you awaken to the larger world where what you've been focusing on becomes concrete and objective for you. When you believe that, you have looped that scene and you've now taken it on as a belief, your desire is done, it is real, creation is finished. You attain that and you remain faithful to your assumption. You remain faithful to your desire. You will then see it materialize in your physical world. One of my examples is that I had a desire to create my YouTube channel. I had for years been hearing from friends, family, clients, start a channel, and there were so many ifs, ands, or buts around what do I do, how do I do it, I don't know YouTube. And last year, when I really looked at, I desire this, I truly desire it, and I started to focus, I would drop into the state of my feeling my desire real. I would see I have this YouTube channel, and people started to gravitate towards me, who would give me some information. I would come across perhaps a tutorial, or I'd see something on YouTube, and finally, when that desire was so strong, it compelled me. I felt so strongly this year that now was the time. So my desire was the driving force in starting the channel, and here I am. I love doing this, doing these videos and doing the tutorials. I know that creation is finished. I have a wildly, hugely successful YouTube channel where lives are transformed. Lives are transformed because I love sharing, not that I love sharing the teachings. These teachings have made such a profound impact on my life that there is not a single day now where I do not drop into the state. I do not see the unseen coming into my reality, and I don't mess around with the when or the how. If I do that, there are ways that I catch myself, I observe where I am at, and I change it. And so my desire now is to continue to grow and expand. And I know that this channel is hugely successful. So if you were to go and look at my subscribers, 2 months ago I had no subscribers, and here I am growing the channel. The channel grows because I desire it to grow. I hold that in my consciousness. Now, in terms of this world of shadows, remember, we can pass out of this world of shadows and beyond it at any time. via your imagination. So if you are sitting in a space of lack, you are sitting in a space of I am miserable, I am unhappy, you can pass out of this world and move into dimensionally larger world. Because in the dimensionally larger world, we are the ones that bring about the quality of the idea that we want. We are creating that idea already. We plant the seed in our imagination. We plant the seed in the dimensionally larger world. So the fundamental world is still so this world is an idea from the dimensionally larger world, and the dimensionally larger world is an idea from infinity and so on. So each time there's always expansion. The universe is forever expanding. The cosmos is forever expanding. Why would you not think that you were also expanding? The only reason you would not expand is if you did not believe that. Man can prove the existence of a dimensionally larger world simply by focusing his attention on the invisible state and imagining and seeing that he feels it. Test this for yourself and prove it. The law of assumption says your imagination creates reality. The dimensionally larger world is where you create your reality from, and then that comes into physical world to show you what is going on. The physical world is a representation of your inner reality. Your inner reality is the mirror of who you are on the larger dimensional. It's not who you are. It is a representation of what you're creating on the fourth dimensional level. In time, in the dimension of time, you are creating your life, your world. So thinking fourth dimensionally, Neville says, intuitively, I feel that where man to abstract, bring his ideas, bring his thoughts from the dimensionally larger world and retreat within his mind, focuses on it, becomes still, goes into this sleepy state, he would bring about an externalization of time. And what that means is what he experiences in the dimensionally larger world of time, where time is everything, the past, present, and future, he accesses that. And he says, well, I wish to have this now. He externalizes his desire into his third dimension, to the physical world, into 3D. So to put into practice the serial universe theory in terms of changing the future. To change the future, you need only be concerned about two worlds in this infinite series right now. The world we know by reason of our bodily organs, our senses. I spoke about this in the previous video. Our senses tell us what we are seeing in our environment, and we don't take it as a given that what your senses are telling you are real, because we can perceive independently of our senses. And we simply move into the dimensionally larger world where it is feeling, it is experiencing yourself before it shows up in your third dimensional reality. So man would discover every time he goes to exercise his imagination, every time he retreats into his inner mind, he makes that real, that a reality in his third dimension. He brings in what he has seen in the fourth dimensional world of his imagination in time. He makes those events real. I will say that new levels of understanding and expansion have come about for me while I've done not just the study, but even now, more and more expansion has happened. And I'm truly grateful that I have this channel through which I can also expand as I go through these videos and break down the concepts and help you to expand in your consciousness. Please like, please subscribe, Drop your comments below. If there are concepts, teachings, etc. that you would like me to cover, please pop them down in the comments below. I very much look forward to our next chapter in Out of This World, which is Assumptions Harden into Fact. Even if you know this, even if you have heard it before, keep an open mind for your expansion. I'll see you in the next video.